All right. Yeah, I got my pillow. Let's do this. I'm live. It's the Nazarite, bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. So, it's after 10 p.m., and I already am a little tired. It's been a long day, a good productive day, thanks to Yah. And I was deliberating whether or not to broadcast, whether or not to address the questions that in the previous chat. And I figured, no, I probably should at least see what I get through. So I'm going to start with with Monday's chat that I didn't get to, and then hopefully I'll get to the vegan Nazarites question on or the back and forth we had about vinegar, and then maybe one or two others. There's a good one by Spooky that I want to address, and I hope I will be able to. Hang on, I just want to see. I'll get to the end of the chat from Monday. Is that it? Yes, I think that's the end. And okay, yeah, so that's the end. So let's see. First of all, let's see if anyone's here now. Yes, someone is here now. Hello, someone. Say hi. Hello to you either way. So let's see. We were talking about prayer, right? Ariel mentioned that he was uncomfortable with certain parts of the Amidah, of the silent prayer, which is the main prayer of the morning, afternoon, and evening prayers. Let's see. Okay, I see. So I was very close to the end there. I was very close to the end. So Robert Harrison said, Jeremiah 23:23, God is everywhere. Now, this was probably in relation to either something I said or something else that happened in the chat. I'm going to address it quickly the way that I see it. That revelation of God is everywhere, much like it says in the Torah that God's eyes are on the land of Israel from the beginning to the end of the year. Let's see. Organ Freebird says, I hear Israel is open for travel without I hear Israel is open for travel without restrictions now. I think a visit is in order soon. Hey, wow, I would love it if you would show up. I don't know what's going on with restrictions insofar as Israel is concerned, but if you would show up here, look me up, hit me up. I'll definitely love to, sit and have a cup of tea, and maybe film another live dialogue. That would be fun. Ariel says, I was encouraged as a child to pursue a personal relationship with God. Wonderful. So prayers, he says, have always been a personal thing for me. One prayer is a constant for me. I pray for God to do whatever is in everyone's best interest. Everyone's best interest. Right, not necessarily what they want, but what they need. That is in their truly in their best interest, not in merely what interests them. Well, that's a good one. That's a worthy prayer. Good for you, Ariel. Good for you. And to be encouraged as a child to pursue a personal relationship with God, that's no small thing. That's something I'm hopefully teaching my kids as well. I'm a bit cottonmouthy here. I might go for some water. Is there? Okay, I'll go soon. Perhaps. So let's see. Robert Harrison says, too much rules. Elohim wants your heart and to walk in truth. There is a wonderful Talmudic saying, Rachamana liba ba'e. God, the heart he wants. In Aramaic, in the Talmud rather, God is called Rachamana, mercy, right? The merciful one. Mercy, again, being this middle pillar, this harmony and beauty, and from the beginning to end, this entity, this being that runs through, right? This unfathomable thing, unexpressible. Elohim wants your heart and to walk in truth. I concur. But the rules, I wouldn't do away so quickly with rules. Because the heart, as I've said many times before, in my experience, can be corrupted. The heart can be broken, right? The heart can be hardened. The heart can be too soft. The heart is such an amazing thing conceptually, physically. And in the way that it relates to the mind, there is what's called an understanding to the heart. The heart can be an instrument of great understanding, but it can also sometimes get in your way. or rather not get in your way, but we can get mixed up in our own, um, burdens. We can get mixed up in our own made up, the stories we tell ourselves, about who we are and what it is that we're doing. The heart it can be difficult. It can be difficult. Let's see. But yeah, definitely to Elohim wants the heart and to walk for you to walk in truth. I agree. Organ says, my daughter and I want to go on a homeless tour of Jerusalem. Ooh, that sounds good and yummy. Ariel says, I already read what Ariel said there. Jesus says, I'm usually the herald of your exit, LMAO. Right, because I was just leaving at the time. And the last few comments there, Robert says, I don't think I've ever seen Jonathan that sleepy as last week. He looked up something on his computer, then completely forgot what he was looking up. Yeah, that sounds about right. It sounds about right. Jesus says, I was going to ask your thoughts about the Jacob and Esau story. Well, yeah, you have to get more specific, but I'll give you the gist of it, right? It's the classic tale of sibling rivalry. After 21 years in the house of Lavan, they meet, and it says there that they reconciled. Esav told Jacob to, to come along with him. And Jacob tells him, no, the fowl and the kids are still young. You go to Seir, right? You go on your way, and I will take sort of the scenic route, right? I'll take like the long way around. I'll take my time until I come to you, master or sir, in Seir, right? Mount Seir, which was Esau's lot of land, right? His given land. And there is it in Ovadia that the saviors will ascend Mount Zion to lay judgment on Mount Asa. Is it Tzfanya or is it Ovadia? It may be Ovadia. Maybe Ovadia. The point is, there's the halacha, right, in the Talmud. Well, it's not an active, possibly halacha, but it's kind of that which you walk with. It is a known halacha that Esau hates Jacob. But this whole love-hate dichotomy, as such, and the rivalry, right, as opposed to the to living in peace, coexistence, that whole thing, as much as the negative, for all intents and purposes, and exists of rivalry, of bloodshed, of judgment, there's also that love between siblings, the bond between siblings. We don't all need to be, the Cain and Abel story. We can transcend. And I think that the peace that the two brothers made that day, when Esau ran to him and hugged him, I think that was a true thing, real brotherly love. And even though the peoples that that came out of these people are still rivals to some degree, I think that love is better than hate and it can bridge those gaps. Wrongdoings can be covered with love. Hatred, it just, right, like he says in Proverbs, that a hatred will make many, what is it, like many quarrels, and love will cover all wrongdoings. There is love, I think, still between Esau and Jacob, and between the peoples of Esau and Jacob, whoever and whatever they may be, to each his own, whatever you think. And I think there's also a chance for love and for peace. I do, despite all the difficulties. And maybe that's just my hippy dippy side. So good, let him shine. All right, Robert says, no, Ariel says, and this was the last thing, yes, he said, so certainly would not feel comfortable, speaking of prayer, would not feel comfortable to ask for anyone to suffer in any way, no matter how they may treat me. Well, that's very noble. I would be wary personally of saying such thing. Even in the what's called Kriyat Shema Shel Hamitah, the recitation of the Shema at the bedside, before you do it, you say, and in different places throughout the year, you say, I hereby forgive complete forgiveness anyone who has done me any wrong, other than those who may have harmed me, like monetarily, right, financially, which I can sue and claim in court. Other than that, I forgive everyone. No one should be punished on my account. No one should be made to suffer because of me. Kind of what you're saying. On the other hand, you don't want to be a doormat. You don't want to be so agreeable and so forgiving that you bring on your own demise. That road to hell that's paved with good intentions. It could be your good intentions and your hell, and the one that you create for yourself. Well, obviously, that's what that phrase is referring to. Though not necessarily with the self at large. And here I'm saying it about the self. You can be too agreeable. You can be a kind of doormat. You can want to be a people pleaser. You can want forgiveness so much and to grant it. And you might be sometimes, because of that mindset, it could turn over and become unhealthy if it's handled improperly. At least there's the potential. But as a mindset and as a like beginning point, definitely what you're saying there, how no matter how they may treat you, you wouldn't be comfortable asking for anyone to suffer. I don't precisely know, right? Everyone's best interest. That's what you were speaking of. I understand. That's putting the positive spin on it in a way that there will be so much goodness and righteousness that evil of its own accord will simply evaporate like smoke. That's what we're going for, right? We're going for increasing that light. And when there is more light, by definition, there is less darkness. Right? That's kind of conceptually what the Torah mitzvot are all about. That was the end of the chat. Let's see if there's anything in the current chat before I move somewhere else. Hey, Yodidiao is here. Lisa is here. Hello, you two. Hi. And a couple of other people probably here because I see 5 over here. All right, let's see. Chame or chometz, says Yodidiao. That's vinegar. Chometz. Shalom, it's Lisa Franey. Hello, Lisa Franey. Shalom Sham. Hello there, says Yodidiel. Are vaccines required to visit Israel? I don't know, because someone just, who was it right now that was speaking in the other chat? Who was it? It was the Karen, Oregon Freebird, right? So she says that the things may have been lessened, the restrictions. I have no idea. I really don't know. I would love to visit Israel, but I'm thinking yes, still that it's still required. I would love to visit Israel. That could be fun. I'd love to meet with you as well, Lisa. If they remove the vaccine requirement, I'll be there next month. Very cool. Yeah, I'm not taking the jab either, says Lisa. Lidiao says, from what I've witnessed, everyone who I know who was vaccinated still got sick and still had fear. Well, I don't know what the future holds, but I've been vaccinated thrice, and I haven't gotten sick as far as I know, and I don't fear it as far as I know. Yep, so what's the point, LOL? Present, hey, Oregon Freebird. Hello, Sean. Hi, how you doing? I'll be there next month, Mr. Hebrew Nazarite. Hey, Yodidiawi Lagimatria, man. We'd love to have you over. They will open March 1st to unvaccinated. Oh, good for you. US citizens and Canadians. So if you're unvaxxed, you can still show up. Awesome. That's good to hear. So I'm going to roll over now to the Vegan Nazarite channel. His video, The Ways of the Nazarite. He speaks there at the end of it. I didn't see the whole thing, but I did catch the end, among other parts, where he speaks of vinegar. And I told him that for many years, and I think he already knows this, but I mentioned it there since it has to do with the video in particular. I figured I'd comment it again, that I, for many years, abstained from all vinegar. If it said vinegar in the ingredients, I did not have it, any of it. And so only recently, in the past year or so, maybe 6 months, I don't exactly know, something like that, between that and that, I understood that most of like the bulk of the vinegar that is used in the mainstream food industry is not wine vinegar. It's not of grape origin. It's either synthetic or made of grains, which means that it's permissible for the Nazarite to drink it and consume it and whatever it is, right? To have it. And I told him, right, things like ketchup, things like mustard, unless they say wine vinegar. Now, in some places, like a restaurant, and I've mentioned this before, I would ask if it's wine vinegar or regular vinegar. But if it's something that does not say wine vinegar in the ingredients, by all accounts, anybody who puts vinegar in there that's made of wine would want to make a point of it because that can jack up the price. If people turn around some kind of good, or consumer good, and they see that it's made with wine vinegar, right, grape vinegar, as opposed to some industrial regular vinegar, or rather grain or synthetic whatever, it's a unique selling point, which means that they would want to have it there. And unless it says wine vinegar, or unless I ask, again, in certain circumstances I'll ask, but otherwise I do partake of it, because fermentation alone does not disqualify the goods for the Nazarite. Now, the vegan Nazarite said this. He said, "Thanks for the comment. Nice to have you back." Yeah, I'm back. "I also researched vinegar," he said. "I'm still on the fence. It is by far the hardest part of the vow to keep. Thank goodness the Torah doesn't say to shave our heads every time we fall." Incidentally, there's the Nazarite woman, a Messianic, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, what's her name? I forget her name right now. Oh, I have it, but I won't look it up right now. She shaved her head after every time she accidentally had vinegar. So, okay, that was a sidebar. Vegan Nazarite said, "I think I'd be bald. From most breads to every manner of processed foods have vinegar added. Yes, many things have vinegar added. I abstained from many things for many years, until recently." So he says, "Do you also drink other forms of alcohol that are not derived from grapes?" So the answer is no, I don't. "I abstain from all forms," he says, "as do I." So we have that in common. You're one of the few. Wait, hold on a second. So, okay, he says, "I'm still a baby," right, with the Nazarite vow. "Gonna turn a whole 2 years old this Passover." So in about a month and a half. "I'm curious to know your take. We Messianics don't rely on the Gemara or Talmud," he says. "So I give everything to Rabbi Yeshua in meditation on the scriptures. I'm also careful because I read in the Tanakh from some of the prophets that the elders of Israel gave wine to the Nazir to drink." Shalom, vegan Nazarite. So yes, it's the book of Amos, if I'm not mistaken, where he says that he raised up, right? God says through the prophet, "I raised up young men as Nazarites, and people for elders, your sons for prophets. But you told the prophets not to prophesy, and you gave the Nazarites wine to drink." It's like you weren't going there. You weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing. So I understand why he's on the fence with the vinegar. It really is a judgment call on whether or not you will take the risk. Now, halachically, even if there's vinegar in it, there is a certain amount where it becomes null and void, again, halachically speaking. So since someone like the vegan Nazarite, who's a Messianic, does not go by halacha or orthodoxy, oral Torah, the whole thing, that rule, which is called batel b'shishim, something, well, that law does not apply. So he needs to be doubly cautious, according to him and his vow. And if, well, no, you know what? Let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that. So yeah, as I've said before, I abstained from all alcohol for many years already. I'm happy that I abstained from all alcohol. Let's see if there's anything in the chat, and if not, I'll go on to Spooky, who asked us something last time. "That's great news," says Lisa Freyne, right, about coming into Israel. Hey, Karen. Hello, Lisa. Hello, all. Can only pop in briefly today. Hello, Ariel. Good to have you here. Pop in, pop out. I'm happy to have you people here with me. It's a lot of fun. All right, now Spooky asked a question, and I think I'll just do this. No, you know what? A quick question by Easy22, who commented on my natural dreadlocks video from the old channel. And he said, "Isn't the vow only for 7 years? I find a lot of people claim this, but only certain parts. There's a lot more to it than just hair." So first he asked if the vow, isn't it only for 7 years? And next he said, regarding the vow, a lot of people claim, right, the Nazariteship, but only certain parts. There's a lot more to it than just the hair. To which I said, boop. I told him, thanks for commenting. The vow is from 30 days onward when there's a temple standing, and it's a lifelong vow when there is no temple, right? We've been through this. And I told him, regarding the 7 years, there is the story of Queen Helene Hamalka, who vowed in the diaspora, right, and outside in foreign parts. She vowed to be a Nazarite for 7 years. When she came to Israel, the Beit Hillel, or was it Beit Shammai, made her take it for 7 years, and then she was defiled in her 7th year, and she had to start from the beginning, meaning she kept altogether 21 years of the Nazarite-ship, and her vow was for 7 years. As far as I know, that's a reference to 7 years on the Nazarite-ship. I don't know of others. I think many others were for life in the Bible and afterwards, and in these times. And now, Spooky, who asked a question, and I hope I'll do it justice. I have spoken of it before, and wait, I need to find it. I thought I had it. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not Spooky, it's Pixie. My mistake. Sorry, Spooky. It was a different Spooky. You know what? Since I mentioned Spooky because I saw his name there, he says, "I love these back and forths. I learned so much from each stance." He also says he'd be interested to learn more about the divine feminine daughter. Right. So I gave him a source or two. Since he asked, he said, "It makes me think of the daughter of Zion, the daughter of Jerusalem," which is true. The divine feminine presence and Yerushalayim, and it's all kind of the same, different degrees of the same manifestation, if you will. All right, so Pixie Face said, your previous YouTube had a vid, Name of God. Never got to watch it before it was taken down. Can you maybe say something on the plural Elohim and the singular Yod He Vav He? Is Yod He Vav He a name or a title or whatever? So I'm going to speak of it, I guess, kind of briefly, because like I said in the beginning, right when I just started broadcasting, I am tired already from the beginning, and this is a heavy topic. This is a serious topic, which I have a lot to say on, but I don't want to get lost in my own blah, 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 blah. So basically, let's start with the basic meanings. Elohim, being the plural, right, of God, is gods. Eloha is the singular, Elohim is the plural. Yod He Vav He, however, is not a word. Okay. Now, Elohim, the basic intent of the mind there is strong and possessing, right, all ability, and master of all the powers, or owner of all powers. Yod He Vav He, the intent of the mind was, is, and will be. This is reflected in Elohim being connected with the left pillar and Gvura, and Yod He Vav He being connected with the middle pillar. The middle pillar runs, right, of the tree of life, runs from the beginning through the middle to the end, which in turn turns into another beginning, like it turns around, it turns upside down, and right, like an hourglass. The Haya Hoveh V'Yihiyeh Yod He Vav He is the intent of the mind, and it's what you see with your eyes, but it's not what you speak. There are many, many different punctuation marks that go with Yod He Vav He. Traditionally, the ones that appear in the Torah is what's called in, let's say, English, Jehovah, and the other one is pronounced Elohim. And it has the punctuation marks of the word Elohim in Yod He Vav He. So the difference is, let's see what he said. He said something else here. He said, I've heard many explanations. Elohim, he says, he heard that someone explained to him that it refers to God in the highest way, right? That's Elohim, who was before and is during and will be after the time of creation. And that Yod He Vav He refers to God as Lord of all the manifest created universe. Then paradoxically, you're quite free to utter the word Elohim aloud, but should never say Yod He Vav He aloud. Now, the idea of Yod He Vav He, as I've said many times, is the duality of it, where it's seen one way, perceived in the mind in one way, and spoken out another way. Right? It's spoken Adonai. And this duality is the unity of male and female. Yod He Vav He is considered, well, to have all of them, but basically considered to be manifesting the male. And Adonai, Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yod, which is how you say it, manifests the female, right? It's the name attributed to the female. And together, when you think one thing and utter another, it's that connection, right, of the heart and the mind and the mouth. And I've spoken of this before as well. So I think maybe you've got that wrong in the explanation that you referred to in your comment, Pixie, because Elohim is the one that is more like the Lord of all manifest created universe, and Yod He Vav He is, and will be after the time of creation, unless it was explained to you from the beginning as being reversed. So I'd love to hear more about that, if that be the case. But as far as I know, right? So okay, let's see. That's the basic of Yod He Vav He and Elohim. The, I guess, extra would be that Yod He Vav He, in the way that the letters are drawn and in the way that the He repeats itself, it's like the two first letters, Yod He, represent the higher worlds, right? The higher male and the higher female, right? The mother and the father, the father and the mother, and that's Yod He, and Vav He is the son and the daughter. So we have unity of mother, father, son, and daughter, where the break between them is crucial, and that's why we have the name Yah. We have the name Yah as a standalone name attributed to the Father, right, to the divine Father, if you will, the manifestation that we call Abba. Elohim, as the name being attributed to Gvura, right, to Din, the left pillar, is lower than that. I think I'm going to stop there before I sort of ramble on, because these two names, there's so much more. You can get deeper and deeper into them, right? Even literally, like spelling out the letters and spelling out the letters that make up the spelling of the letters. And you could go deeper and deeper, and there's a lot of gematria involved, a ton. Yodidiao, if you're still watching, tons of gematria involved there. But there's a plurality even to the singular Yod He Vav He, seeing that it encompasses mother, father, son, and daughter, seeing that there's a duality in the He, and seeing that there's a duality in the names, where Yod He is a name on its own, and there's Yod He Vav He, which is a name on its own. And there's also the name that's right, spoken one way, but thought of, seen in one way, spoken another. There's a duality in the singular, and there's a duality or a multiplicity, a plurality in Elohim. And either way, it points to this. If it can be perceived, it's not God. It's a revelation of God. It's plural. It's dual. It's not that singular, unknowable revelation or being that we would call God. It's all names, it's all titles. Now, you asked, is it a name or is it a title? Right? Yod He Vav He. Is it a name or a title? All of God's titles are also names, but not all names are titles in like classic 5 books of Moses. There are many, many, many names. Most of God's names are not revealed in the Torah. We have the few that are used there, right? Things like El, things like Shaddai, things like Yah, things like Adonai, things like Elohim in its different spellings. And those all represent parts of the 10 Sfirot. But then there are also the names made up, again, of all the different Gimatriot, and changing around the letters and changing changing, well, let's leave it at that. A lot of math and a lot of, let's say, literary angles and relationships, if I'm saying it correctly, because each letter itself corresponds with a sphira, and each letter in and of itself corresponds with a left, right, or middle pillar. And so when you have them in a certain succession with certain punctuation marks, which also correspond to different sphirot and different relationships, you have a very rich sort of web of names and meanings that go into a certain divine revelation. And it's presented like that, with these letters, with this ending or suffix, with this punctuation, very, very surgical and specific. And based on these ideas of gematria and the letters and the correspondence between them and the different relationships between the sfirot, that's what the kavanot are all based on, facilitating those relationships and being one with them as they are occurring, as you bring them into being mindful of them, and being precise in your speech, in your breath, in your posture, in what it is that you're wearing, down to what it is that is currently being digested in your stomach. Kabbalists are heavy duty. It's heavy. It's a heavy duty life. I'm not a Kabbalist. I've known a few, thank God. I dare say I still know a few. So let's see. Okay, I think there are more comments. Todale, yeah, there are more comments, but I'm going to head over to the chat, and if there's nothing there, I'll just mosey on out of here. So let's see. Oh, there's a lot in the chat. Todale, yeah. So let's see. Ooh, pardon. Oregon Freebird says, because it's live. Hello, good people. It's so nice to have you here. I'm so lucky. I'm so thankful. I push a button, a camera lights up, or the light lights up, the camera opens up, and I get to talk to you people about things that I really care about. And not only are you here, but you're also engaging, asking questions, forming your own relationships. It's such a wonderful thing. And I don't mean that in some, I mean, it really is full of wonder because it's being created now spontaneously. It's so, I cherish it. I do. If only here, right here, because I'm not saving these videos. Jonathan, did you learn nothing from your deletion of the old channel? Probably not. I don't download these videos. Maybe I should. Let's keep going. I was listening to Dr. James, said Oregon Freebird today, Dr. James Tavo. I was listening to him today. He was teaching about John the Baptist out of Josephus, right? Josephus Flavius, the historian. It says John didn't even eat bread. He ate no processed food, a back to Eden type observance. Ooh, I would believe that. I would definitely believe that. I mean, as you know, some of you, those who follow, I only read the New Testament one time. But when it came to the book of, is it the book of John? The Gospel? Is it, which one is it? I think it's John, where it starts off with his parents being told that they will have a boy, right? And that he will be great in the sight of God, something like that. Is that it? People who follow Yeshua or who read the New Testament, correct me if I'm mistaken. That's what that's the God was the Word and the Word was God. That whole thing. And if I'm not mistaken, now I don't think that I don't believe that that's the case. But the verses that are the verses that speak of John the Baptist's parents and the way that he would be great before God and what he did, right? The immerser, the baptizer. It's he seemed like a real straight up righteous guy who was bringing people back to the path of righteousness and truth. Forget about Yeshua and Christianity. I'm talking about him as a person and the way that he's depicted in the New Testament, if I'm not mistaken. I remember reading those verses and saying, all right, it may not be my sacred book, but I can appreciate the way that this guy is described. I can appreciate that if he did in fact exist, that he was a good guy altogether. And that's something. So an Eden type of observance, I certainly connect with that on a very personal level. And I can understand that, right? Being a raw vegan, for sure. That's, as I said before, that might be at some point something I do down the line, but it would have to take a lot more planning and responsibility than regular veganism. Quick input, says Ariel Marshall. An observation you may find interesting. You mentioned you are not observant in regards to staying away from the dead. Did you know that in gardening, dead plants pass on sickness to new growth plants, which is why many gardeners go to great lengths to keep their gardens tidy and help plant hygiene? Yes, the soil itself can become corrupt. Or are you talking about plants, sickness to new growth plants? New growth and plants which are adjacent or which share the same soil or which have physical contact between them. Either way, regardless of the circumstances under which they transfer the sickness, yes, let's put it this way. When I took my vow, I was still an active reserve soldier, and I was until I was discharged last year. I was a field medic in the Armored Corps, and I took my vow 12 years ago, 13, going on 13 years, And I was already in that reserve platoon for a few years by then, something like 5 years. And I knew that that's something that I wanted to keep doing until I'm almost going to hit 40 or about, right, which is what happened. So I took my vow much more as a Samson vow. And the other things that I added that are elements of, let's say, the how I read the book of Numbers, chapter 6, those elements I took onto myself, and it's part of the vegan thing, and it's the alcohol thing, and it's the right, that Nazarite state of mind, which is mentioned a lot more in relation to Numbers 6 than it is with Samson, where you have the Philistines, it's the book of Judges, Torah is Torah, prophets are prophets, judges are judges. So that's when I say I'm a hybrid, I lean a lot more towards the Samson vow, and the Samson, the Shimshon Nazarite, does not abstain from the defilement of death. Right. Incidentally, I didn't get to that part yet in the books that I'm reading on the Nazariteship, but it seems that there's a real good reason why Shimshon and those who take the Shimshon Nazarite vow can be defiled by death, or rather, can be yes. Let's put it that way. Yes, and can be defiled by death. When I get to it, I hope to speak of it. Let's see. Let's see. Oregon Freebird says, Yodidiao, I listened to that today too. Yochanan Hamatbil. Anyone notice Yochanan means grace of Yahoo? Oh, I have. Yochanan Hamatbil. Ken, Chanina, grace, Chen. Let's see. Yo, Jonathan. Hey, Robert, hello. Jonathan, can you read Second Chronicles 15, 12, 15? Okay, let's read that. King James Version, he says. Let's do it. Now the acts of Rechavam, first and last, are they not written in the book of Shmaiah the prophet and of Iddo the seer concerning genealogies? And there were wars between Rechavam and Yerovam continually. Well, when I read Divrei Hayamim, Chronicles, I don't think I looked those up. I don't think I looked them up. I don't have anything to say about them. I don't recall ever asking myself, or rather, I'm sure I asked myself when I was reading it, but I didn't follow up on it. Well, Iddo is it might be Iddo ben Berechia, but you know what? No, that's me just sort of grasping at ends of strands. So I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. Let's see if somebody answers. Does anyone have an answer for Robert on the books that are mentioned in that verse? I mean, God willing, I will look it up in Hebrew and give you an answer. Hope perhaps Friday, more possibly Monday, more probable. That is. Ariel says, "Oh no, Yodidiao says to Ariel, good observation. The dead plants also are decomposed for fertilizer later." Yodidiao says to Robert, "Hey Robert, do you believe in unicorns?" Shmaiah the prophet and Iddo, says Robert. Right, the books of Shmaiah and Iddo. Ariel says, yes, over time, the pathogens decompose into the soil and generally remain in the soil for approximately 20 years untreated. Wow. 20 years. Robert says, also in 2nd Chronicles chapter 12, an Egyptian king invaded Israel and took all the vessels in the Lord's house. Was the ark one of the vessels that was took? No. As far as I know, no. The ark was taken by Nebuchadnezzar, if I'm not mistaken. Rather, not taken. The ark was hidden by Chizkiyahu or Yirmiyahu or Yeshayahu. But it could be, because I haven't read Divrei Hayamim Chronicles. I haven't read Chronicles in a very long time, nor have I read commentary or midrash on Chronicles in a very long time on things pertaining to those things. And this is something I sometimes struggle with. I mean, I try and read some Torah every day. Shabbat and holidays, I have different studies as well. I'm reading these Nazarite books now. and still there are things that I should probably carry on with. Well, you know what? Actually, that's not fair. That's just me passing judgment on myself. I am actually going through the Tanakh slowly at work with a group there. So, to hell with that. I'm just going to plow right ahead here. But the one thing I did want to say, regardless of me and my current experience, is it's always good to repeat your study. It's always good to go over it. And I guess in this life we choose what is it that we go over, what is it that we repeat, what is it that we solidify, what mechanisms are we building in our minds, in our very brains, right? So let's see. If there were no pathogens or disease, what would be the point of the beneficial bacteria and bugs? Some things thrive off the bad. Without the bad, would they still exist? Well, what we consider to be relatively bad, right? But I hear what you're saying. If there are no pathogens or disease, what would be the point? Good question. It's a this nature, this world, this creation exists in a balance. Currently, Ariel said the only way to grow a fully healthy plant is within lab environment. Well, a sterile sort of environment, like a lab, is a fully healthy plant. But there is, I'm assuming, I'm not an agriculturalist or whatever, but agriculturalist? I'm not a, what would it be? I know it's agronom in Hebrew, but oh man, see, I'm tired. Losing my vocabulary here. Losing my vocab. Okay, let's just continue. So, okay, within a lab. All right. Sean, yes, he believes in unicorns, I guess. A sterile environment is not necessarily the proper one. I agree. Funny, I was like, never mind. Let's keep going. By the way, and I may have asked this before, but as long as I have you nice people here, is it of any value when I read the chat, or should I simply be reacting to what I'm reading with my eyes? What is it that because you people are out there, some of you anyway, are already reading the chat. On the other hand, maybe some people are listening with headphones. And I may have asked this, as I said before, but if at any time you guys want me to stop actually reading the chat out loud, you can do that, and I can do it. I can scan with my eyes and answer questions because you see them as they're coming in. All right, let's see. Pathogens are a part of God, says Ariel, and nature by my understanding. Yeah, part of God and nature, it's true. Nice. King James Version says so too, says Yodidiahu to Robert. Yes, to Robert. Oregon says to Yedidiahu, I am a huge fan of Dr. Tavo. I dreamed about the name Ovadia a while back ago. Servant of Yah. I wonder what it means. Well, it's they say that dreams sometimes are an expression of ourselves, the characters, the situations. Dreams represent different experiences and conditions and tragedies or threats that are in the offing, at least conceptually, that the mind can deal with. I'm not a psychologist or a researcher or a scholar, but I know that some people say that it's sort of projecting different things that might happen and making order in the mind, right? That's why we have dreams our entire lives, because it brings order from the chaos of being to some degree. Thank God you're rested, Jonathan. Am I rested, or do you mean? How do you mean? But okay, let's keep going. Evidyahu, Ovadyahu. Was Rechavam all in all a good king or bad? Well, he listened to the children that grew up with him, that the people who grew, and not the elders. And it was done so the kingdom would be ripped from him. There was I think that he was a good king altogether. I forget what the Book of Kings actually says regarding Rechavam. Only that there was war between Rechavam and Yerovam, right? All of their days. I don't remember. Maybe somebody does. But I would think, listen, with a father like Solomon, he must have picked up some good traits, some good things. His father and his father's court were legendary. The Temple of Solomon, right? Beit HaMikdash. That's like the stuff of legends, you know? And I'm not going to look it up now. Waiting on Jonathan's second reading of the Gospel. Yeah, I might just do that sometime. I might. Again, because I love how down to earth Yeshua is in those books, right? Not the letters, not Revelation, not Acts, not all of that. The Gospel, really, I love the way that he's portrayed there. Again, as a story. It doesn't matter to me whether it happened or not. It doesn't matter to me if it's sacred or not. To myself, not to others. To others, they can to each their own. But just the way that it's written, the way that it always feels that it needs to sort of call back to the prophets. Oh, this and this happened, as was prophesied by this and that. It's written in a way that's not normal, let's say, biblically speaking. So it's an interesting read for somebody who has been reading the Bible a lot of my life, on and off, and then to read something like that is interesting, definitely interesting. And there's a lot to learn from the character of Yeshua, whether or not he existed. There's a lot to learn from the character as any other story, just like the 5 books of Moses and the prophets and the writings and the scrolls, right? We carry these stories throughout history. We pass them on. People spend their entire lives immersing themselves in their teachings, and there's a reason. All right. And I don't believe that it's all power and oppression and control. I don't. I do not. Ariel says, according to the Talmud, if I remember correctly, plant disease can be treated through fasting. Cannot say that I tried this myself, however. Really? Okay, I'm not enough of a Talmud scholar or any kind of a scholar to remember where such a thing would be. Well, probably when speaking of Trumot and of Shvi'it, right? The different donations, the Sabbath of the land, the Bikurim, the first fruit on what you can bring and not bring, and probably things having to do with Kilaim, right? Which are two joined strains in one plot of land, things that are not allowed. Yedidiah says, wait, hold on. Boop, 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 boop. Yodidiah says, where is it? Oh, Yeshua said, no man born of a woman is greater than John. Christians pass by this verse. John baptized Yeshua. What do you mean pass by this verse? You mean they pass it by and don't give it a second glance? Or do you mean they pass it on? Well, I guess then you would have said pass on the verse. But I will send you the video in Messenger on John the Baptist. I think you would find it very interesting. I might. He seems to be quite a character. Rechavam married Absalom's daughter Makkah, or is it Massa? I don't remember her name. If I'm pronouncing it right, says Robert. Ariel says, I had to give mouth to a dead man a few years ago. My health has certainly gotten worse since then, though I do not blame that on the highly unpleasant experience. Oh, well, wow, that's harsh. Did you have to keep going until someone who's more certified or a higher tier medical person arrived? When I'm curious what the circumstances were. Robert says, I always, when I'm reading Tanakh and I come across a Hebrew name, I always look for the meaning of the Hebrew name. Yeah, as do I, if I don't understand it right off the bat. I often wonder what happened to the pure gold shields King Solomon had made. Oh yes, Shiltei Zahav. And then they replaced them with what? Silver? Copper? Silver. No, copper. I think they replaced them with copper. Do you enjoy reading it, says Robert, or would you rather react? I enjoy reading it. It also helps there be less dead airspace, instead of me just. It helps to read it out loud. Also, from what I've gathered, perhaps some people like hearing their questions read aloud by another in these types of situations. But it's a good question. I do enjoy it. Spooky, hey Spooky, how you doing? Hey, hey, you said hello, hello. I think I'm gonna say goodbye. Let's go. You know what? Spooky showed up. I might as well read what he has to say and not immediately say goodbye. Spooky says, I think it helps when you read the chat out loud because sometimes I listen when driving and can't keep up with the chat. Also, it's nice to hear the chat when listening to the stream replay upload. Well, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me on audio and for replaying it. That's really kind. It's really sweet. I appreciate it. Last question, says Robert. Where Rechavam was the Ammonites, he was considered a Jew, even though he was Solomon's ben. I'm not sure what you're meaning to say there. Where Rechavam Ima was Ammonites, was he considered a Jew? I'm not sure what you mean. I'm simply not reading the question properly. Lisa Freyne says, I believe in Kabbalah. Well, what do you mean when you say believe in Kabbalah? Which Kabbalah do you mean more precisely, or simply the idea of a wisdom that was handed down from Adam HaRishon? How do you mean that you believe it, or that you believe in it? Kabbalah is, and I do too. If belief is something that's right to say about it. Yeah, it is amazing. And I mean amazing, not in the sense of, whoa, that's amazing. I mean, really, it amazes me sometimes. And I sit in front of a book and I read, something again and again and again, and the nuances and the subtleties sometimes, especially in Pardes Rimonim by the Ramak that I'm reading. It says so much about the individual and about, I've spoken of a bit of Kabbalah before, even though I'm not a Kabbalist. Lisa says, I definitely believe in transmigration of souls. I hear you. Spooky says, isn't it interesting that Paul never mentions a virgin birth in all of his letters, and he in fact says that Yeshua is descended from David according to the flesh? Lisa Freyne, what is that, says Robert. Spooky says, check out Daniel Matt on YouTube if you are interested in the Zohar and Kabbalah, Robert. Paula. Lisa says, you will need to research it, Robert, Paula, but it's where your soul comes back to this world, but in another human form different from reincarnation. Yes, it's more along the lines of what's called an ibur, or sometimes a dibuk. Let's see. Paula says, Robert says, rather, I know I like hearing my question read aloud. What's up, Pinky? Oh, Pinky's in the other room right now. Oh, wow, I've been speaking for almost an hour. You guys are awesome out there to stick around with me here and listen to my ramblings. Lisa says, but I don't believe our souls sit in heaven. You go to purgatory, then heaven before God, but you don't see him, then you're sent back here. Rechavam's Ima. Oh, I see. Yes, Ima. Yes, IMA without the. Okay. Yes, he was considered a Jew because up until the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, if I'm not mistaken, it went according to the father, right? The paternal line was the line of the faith and the covenant from Abraham to Yitzchak and so on. The switch came, if I'm not mistaken, after the redemption showed up, right? And the people of Zion returned. The return to Zion. The foreign women that they were married to had to go, and there was a whole thing. And then at some point, I don't know, probably doesn't say it in Tanakh, but it's halacha, and it was brought down in the Talmud, or the Mishnah rather, if I'm not mistaken, that it's through the mother from that point on. What do you think about the bosom of Avraham in Sheol, Lisa? Thank you for all the streams, Jonathan. Wow, thank you, thank you. You know what? That's a good time to. This is a good time to stop. It's almost been an hour. I got this lovely thank you from Spooky. So I'm going to stop now. But I'm really, really happy that I addressed a few of the comments that that came in the last couple of days. And I want to thank Robert. Khalid, I see, is here. I'll get to this chat, hopefully, if not Friday, then Monday. I'll get to the rest. But hello, Khalid. Hello. And I'm sorry that I won't address your questions or comments now. My apologies, man. I'm too tired. So, Lisa, thank you to Robert. Thank you to Spooky. Thank you to Ariel. Thank you, Freebird. Of course, Yodidiahu. And anyone else who was here who's watching it later. Was that it? Yes, I think that's who was here. I deeply appreciate your time, your kind attention. I don't take it for granted. You take time out of your busy day or night to engage with me here, to listen, to provide value yourselves to the people here, and it's lovely, and I deeply appreciate it. Let's have a wonderful night, a wonderful day. God willing, I'll see you before Shabbat on Friday for either a broadcast or a short on the weekly Torah portion. And what a Torah portion it is. Until then, Laila Tov. Thanks again. So much fun.